Hello everyone, my name's Zenitsu and I'm back with another Digimon deck profile video. So today I'm going to be taking a look at BT12, and BT12 offers us lots of new and powerful tools to be able to build and iterate on some new and existing decks. And today's deck I'm going to be focused on is going to be a brand new iteration on Cross Hearts. So this is more specifically Cross 7 focused, and Cross Hearts does have a Cross Merva focus build, but that didn't receive as many significant updates as Cross 7, just because we got Cross 7 Superior and a new card to go along with it, as well as some other Cross Hearts cards that are making this variation shine a little bit brighter than the old one, even though there's nothing wrong with the old one. So they're still both very strong builds, utilizing the same core, just swapping out what top end you prefer and prioritize. So with all that said and done, let's just dive right into the deck profile. Starting off with the Digitama, we're still going to be running 4 copies of Pickmons, just because it is the best Digitama for this deck, giving us some extra draw, which this deck really wants and appreciates. Then when it comes to the level 3s, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Shoutmon. So this is the BT10 version of Shoutmon. It's going to be a nice Cross Hearts card to use because it's going to be helping dig out our Cross Hearts and our Tamers, while also having the save mechanic attached to it. So when it dies, it'll go underneath our Tamer, so that way we could use as material to cross. And then the inheritable we're utilizing with this card is going to be Rush, so that way our Shoutmons could be as aggressive as they possibly can be. Next, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Starmons. So Starmons is another save-based cross-heart Digimon with the inheritable ability of allowing us to draw a card when we attack, so that way we can have even more card draw, especially paired up with our Pickmons. And then the last rookie of the deck is going to be 4 copies of Sparrowmon. So Sparrowmon is going to be the main aggressive rookie, just because it's going to have a nice DP boost of 3000 during all turns, just as long as we have another Cross Hearts card in play, which we obviously should if we're playing a Tamer or another Digimon. So this is going to be a level 3 swinging for 5k with the on-delete ability of save, just like all of our other rookies, and the inheritable it's going to be giving our Digimon is going to be Reboot, so that way our Digimon can be as offensively defensive as they possibly can, having some extra forms of protection. Next, on to the level 4s, I'm going to be running 1 copy of Shoutmon King version. So this is the BT10 version of the card. It comes with material save 1 when it gets deleted to be able to try to keep some materials, so that way we could use them later, on top of the fact that it has a nice Digicross ability of 2 with just any Cross Hearts traded Digimon, which the deck is full of, so that way we could try to play him for cheap, and when we do play him, he's going to help retrieve one of our Cross cards, so that way we have an extra way to be able to utilize them again. And then on top of that, the inheritable ability that this card offers our higher stage Digimon is going to be a decent DP boost. Next, I'm going to be running 1 copy of Shoutmon Cross 4. So Shoutmon Cross 4 is so good of a card that it did get limited to 1, which is why we can only run 1 copy. And what this card is doing is it natively has material save 2, so at worst, as long as it has a decent amount of inheritables, then it's going to be able to at least save 2 of them. And his Digicross 2 ability, utilizing the 4 selected Digimon of Shoutmon, Ballistamon, Dorulumon, and Starmon, means that we could potentially play this card for 1, on top of the fact that when we do play him, he's going to have an ability to allow us to draw 2 cards to try to make the deck even more consistent, with an ability that triggers at the end of the attack that basically just throws all of his inheritables underneath the Tamer and unsuspends our Tamer, so that way we could potentially use that Tamer and all of the material to be able to cross again. Next, I'm going to be running 3 copies of Shoutmon Cross 3. So Shoutmon Cross 3 is basically a discounted version of Shoutmon Cross 4. They're doing a lot of things in common. So they both have the Material Save 2 ability, they both have Digicross 2. This time it's utilizing only 3 materials of Shoutmon, Ballistamon, and Dorulumon, so that way it's still a card that we could potentially play for 1. With the on-play ability, instead of drawing 2 cards, it's a searcher, so that way we could search the top 3 for some specific cards. And the other ability to pair along with it is going to be an ability that triggers at the start of our turn if we want to, where we could delete this Digimon to be able to gain some extra memory to be able to make more powerful plays possible if we feel like we don't need this card or can't utilize this card while it's sitting on the field. Next, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Dorulumon. So Dorulumon is one of the core material cards that we're going to be utilizing. It has a nice on-play ability to be able to DP reduce one of the opponent's Digimon by 3,000, which could deal with a lot of small bodies, especially those pesky floodgates. Then he himself also has an on-delete ability of save, so that way he could be aggressive and then have him get deleted and go underneath our tamer to use as material. And he has a really decent ability to use as a material, where his inheritable just DP reduces the opponent's security, so that way our mid-level Digimon have an easier time swinging into the opponent's security and surviving. And then the last level 4 of the deck is going to be 4 copies of Ballistamon. So Ballistamon is another core material piece where he has the ability where he's going to be a blocker as long as we just have another Cross Hearts traded card in play. He has that on-delete ability of save, so that way we could use him defensively to stem some of the opponent's aggression while still being able to use him as a material. And as a material, his ability to be able to give whatever Shoutmon we're digicrossing him into piercing just makes our Digimon a little bit more aggressive. Next, on to the level 5s, I'm going to be running 2 copies of OmniShoutmon. So OmniShoutmon is going to be used more often as material than anything else, so that way we could try to gain his inheritable ability of allowing us to have access at Security Attack Plus to make our Digimon even stronger and be able to deal more damage than they normally would. But he does have some usability in case we're stuck and we actually need to utilize the card, just because he does have the on-delete ability of save himself, so we do have some interesting interactions that we could do because of this. And then on top of that, he has a nice when digivolving ability to potentially be able to delete the opponent's low-level Digimon, with him also counting as a Shoutmon when we're utilizing him as a material, and a nice ability to be able to warp up into him as well, making him have a ton of usability for the deck. And then the only other level 5 of the deck is going to be 2 copies of Shoutmon Cross 5. So Shoutmon Cross 5 is an absolutely insane card for this deck to use, just because if we utilize all of his Digicrosses, which is containing Shoutmon, Ballistamon, Dorulumon, Starmons, and Sparrowmon, then he actually is going to be free to hard play, which is just really powerful, especially since we know we could give him Rush and a slew of other abilities. Then he just natively comes with Security Attack +1 to be able to deal some decent damage. Blocker, just because Sparrowmon is going to be giving him reboot, so we have some defensive plays along with it, and material save 3, so that way when he gets deleted, we're at least going to be able to save a good amount of his inheritables to be able to line up some more crosses with him. And then as far as level 7s go, I'm going to be running 3 copies of Shoutmon Cross 7. So Shoutmon Cross 7 is going to be one of the big boss monsters of the deck. We could potentially hard play him for 2 if we utilize all of his materials, which there's 6 of. So he needs OmniShoutmon, ZeigGreymon, Ballistamon, Dorulumon, Starmons, and Sparrowmon in order to reduce his cost by 2 for each of them. So hard playing a level 6 for 2 with a slew of different abilities is really, really strong, especially since the turn that he comes into play, because he natively has Rush, he's going to be able to swing right away, on top of the fact that when we do hard play him, then he's going to be able to delete one of the opponent's Digimon who's weaker than him, which he should have a lot of DP considering his all turns ability allows us to be able to gain 1000 for every 2 in his source, which we're going to be shoving 6 underneath, meaning that he should be at least at 16k when he's going to be hitting the field, on top of any other boosts that he could potentially have. Then on top of that, he also has the material save 4, so when he does get deleted, then he's going to at least try to save 4 of our sources again, so we can be able to line up some various other crosses. And then the last level 6 of the deck is going to be one of the material pieces that we need for Cross 7 to work to begin with, which is going to be 2 copies of ZeigGreymon. So we're almost never going to be digivolving into ZeigGreymon, but we do have that line of play in case it does present itself, on top of him also having the on-delete ability of save as well. Then on top of that, the ability that we're trying to utilize with this is going to be able to give our higher stage Digimon the blocker ability, so that way we have that offensively defensive game plan, especially in combination with Sparrowmon, so we could have a really resilient Digimon that's able to do a lot. And then the last Digimon of the deck and newest addition is going to be 2 copies of Shoutmon Cross 7 Superior Mode. So Shoutmon Cross 7 Superior Mode is a really good Hail Mary style of card, just because it's doing something very similar to Shoutmon Cross 7, just a little bit better. You do kind of have to telegraph that you're going to be utilizing this card, just because we do want to potentially use the cards in our trash, and we need to have a Shoutmon in play in order to be able to start crossing with cards from our trash. So you're going to need to hide a Shoutmon in Raising, move it out, to be able to hard play Superior Mode and gain full access at being able to utilize this card, just because when we do hard play him, we can Digicross one with as many Cross Hearts or Blue Flare traded Digimon with different card numbers, so we could potentially reduce his play cost by a lot to be able to make him potentially cheap or free to use. And then he's going to have a nice on-play ability that's going to act as some decent removal, except instead of deleting the opponent's Digimon that's weaker than it, it's going to remove all of its sources and tuck it to the bottom of the deck, with a nice additional ability for when we're aggressing into the opponent's security, so security effects of options don't activate, so it's a nice, easy, free, and safe swing, while this card also having some insanely large DP. Next, on to the Tamers, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Taiki. So Taiki is the most important Tamer in this deck, just because it's one of the core ways that we're going to be utilizing the cards underneath our Tamer to be able to Digicross to begin with. And then just for playing Taiki, it's going to be acting as a way to increase his inheritables while being able to search out our Cross Heart traded cards as well. Next, I'm going to be running 3 copies of Akari. So Akari is another pretty decent Tamer, acting as one of the core draw engines for the deck, just because whenever we play a Cross Hearts traded Digimon, we get a Suspender to draw a card, and just for playing her, we already get to play a Digimon, and that Digimon is going to be Dorulumon from either under one of our Tamers or our hand, making her just a really good card to capitalize on a lot of our abilities. And then I'm also going to be running 3 copies of Zenjiro that's doing basically the same exact thing as Akari, except of instead of drawing cards, we're going to be gaining memory to make us more tempo efficient, on top of the fact that instead of Dorulumon that we're going to be playing off of our Akari, Zenjiro is going to be allowing us to play our Ballistamons. And then the last Tamer of the deck is going to be 3 copies of the Tri-Tamer, Taiki, Kiriha, and Nene, as another way to be able to enable us to cross with all of our cards underneath our Tamer, while this also acts as a nice battery, where we get to place a Cross Hearts or Blue Flare card from our hand underneath this Tamer to be able to gain a memory and draw a card, and we're going to be utilizing this to try to shove some of our higher stage Digimon like ZeigGreymon or OmniShoutmon as the primary targets, because we're not necessarily actually trying to Digivolve into them, and we just need to shove them underneath our Tamer, so that way we could cross into our higher stage Digimon while being able to gain some resources in the meantime. And then the last card of the deck is going to be the only option of the deck, and that's going to be 1 copy of Final Crossblade. So Final Crossblade is basically the deck's Gaia Force, except it has a neat interaction with our Cross 7 Superior, where we get to unsuspend the Digimon and have our Cross 7 Superior also be able to attack, so that way we could potentially get an extra attack with our Cross 7 Superior to try to either close out the game or try to deal as much pressure and damage onto the opponent while being able to remove some of their threats. And as I mentioned before, I'm not really going to be going over the Merva variant, but I will just show it off just in case you're curious on what a cross Merva deck it can look like in BT12. The only real big addition is going to be teching in Jet Mervamon, just because she adds some extra utility into what the deck is already doing, which is just Cross Hearts, but a little bit more aggressive. But between the 2 different variants, they're running a lot of very similar cards, and you're mostly just swapping out the top end to be able to accommodate what big boss monster or boss monsters you're looking to play. So understanding the core of the deck is going to help you build your variation of the deck, and I kind of laid out this nice 36 card core, where it's just utilizing the most important pieces to what makes Cross Hearts, well, Cross Hearts. I personally don't think Cross Hearts is a super hard or complicated deck to play. you're going to basically just try to be as aggressive with your cards and smart about how you're going to be utilizing your cards as best as you possibly can. So when it comes to your raising area, you're always just going to be using whatever level 3 that you have. The ideal ones that you're going to want to use is Sparrowmon and Starmons, and then if you're lining up a Cross 7 Superior, obviously you're going to want to utilize Shoutmon. But regardless which one you're going to be using, you're just going to shove it into your raising area, raise as quickly and often as you possibly can, so that way you could use Pickmons to be able to get some extra card draw when you're aggressing into the opponent's security, and you actually do kind of want your stuff to die, so that way you can tuck it underneath your tamer and use it as material later. Then when it comes to some of the other cards, they're just going to be used for material to line up your crosses. So obviously Ballistamon and Dorulumon have tamers that want to be able to utilize them and can utilize them alternatively, so that way you have even more efficient ways to be able to use these cards. And again, you could be as aggressive or defensive as you want with these cards, just because they also have the save and they're going to hide themselves underneath the tamer, so they can be used as material as well. Then the reason why I'm playing Shoutmon King version, at least from BT10, is the fact that he could count as basically any material, which is just really helpful, on top of him also being a Shoutmon, so that way we could use him alternatively as well as a good way to be able to retrieve our parts and pieces, on top of the fact that he does have some cute little synergies and interactions, like it just having a level 4 rusher with the BT10 Shoutmon. So it's just a good, generally usable card. Then the level 5 and the level 6 are mostly just going to be used as a material for shoving underneath our Tri-Tamer, so that way we could generate some extra resources, and we're rarely ever digivolving all the way up into them. Then when it comes to our crosses, they're pretty easy to understand how we want to utilize them. So Shoutmon Cross 3 is going to be using 3 of our core materials to be able to just play him for cheap and be able to start aggressing that way, while also being a good consistency tool. Shoutmon Cross 4, using 4 of our core materials, basically is doing something similar. It's just allowing us to basically loop our material to be able to line up another Digicross. And then Shoutmon Cross 5 is using 5 of our core materials, so that way we could play him for free and be really aggressive and defensive at the same time, as just a good general utility card. Then when it comes to Shoutmon Cross 7, we're going to be utilizing 6 of our core materials, so that way we could try to, again, use them similarly to Shout 5, except this time he has some built-in removal. Then when it comes to Shoutmon Cross 7, we're going to be obviously trying to play him with a Shoutmon in our raising area, so that way we could raise out our Shoutmon and then be able to cross with all of the cards in our trash in case anything did end up in our trash, to be able to play him for at least a cost reduction of 12 if we're utilizing at least one of basically everything, which is still pretty cheap for a level 7 to hard play. That's also going to be removing the opponent's body, and if we maintain turn and can aggress onto the opponent, which ideally we should, with enough of our tamers being able to help us generate some extra memory, so that way we could be as aggressive with this card as we possibly can. And that's where the option comes in to be able to unsuspend them and get an extra attack in while removing an extra body. And then as far as how you want to utilize your tamers, obviously in the mid to early stages of the game, you're going to want to try to set up your tamers as quickly and efficiently as you possibly can. 2 of our tamers helps us play some of our Digimon. The other 2 help us enable our Digicrosses to begin with, while generating us some extra resources and card advantage. And then when it comes to what to put under your tamers, you're going to want to try to spread it out as much as you humanly possibly can, just in case the opponent is running any form of tamer removal. You don't want to put all of your eggs in one basket just to have it get deleted, and then you're going to have to start all over again. So the wider you could spread out your sources underneath your tamers, the better you're going to be at being able to evaluate what sources you have access to and limit what the opponent is able to delete if they are at all. And then on top of all of that, we still have tech and tools that we can incorporate into the deck to really customize it and make it your own. So we do have something like Shoutmon to be able to reuse some of the cards in our trash and put them back underneath our tamer. Then we do have some good cards from BT12 we could lean into, like King Shoutmon from BT12. Even though it's not going to be counting as a Shoutmon, it's still a card to be able to digicross with, on top of the fact that it's going to help set up our Taiki, and on top of that, with our new Taiki, it can also act as an easy way to generate some extra resources and to build up our tamer, so that way we could use it with our old Taiki or our tri-tamer to be able to start digicrossing with as quickly as we possibly can. Then we do have some other cute options available to us in terms of various other sublines we could focus on. So if you actually want to try to digivolve into your level 5s, we do have the B variants that we could run in the form of Shoutmon Cross 5B and Shoutmon Cross 4B that we could dip and lean into, just because they have their own sets of strengths and weaknesses. Then, if we're also thinking about utilizing level 5s, we could lean into Quartzmon, just because we do have 2 sets of level 5s that have save in their text, so that way we actually could try to utilize Quartzmon with what we already have. And speaking of just throwing in a good generic level 7, we also have access to DeathXmon, because it can go into virtually any deck, acting as a really good removal tool on a stick that we could play for relatively cheap. Then we do have some other cute to tech option cards that we could lean into, like some of the plugins, some of the other Cross Hearts option cards. And then we do have just some really good generic removal in all of the different colors that we are splashing or teching already, so we could lean into a lot of various different tech and tools that way as well. So that's all I really have for this video. As always, feel free to tell me your thoughts down in the comments below, and down in the description below are a couple of different ways you could support me and the channel. So I do have a TCG Player affiliate link, so when you use that link to buy cards off of TCG Player, then some of that money will go to supporting me and the channel. I also do make and sell playmats over on Overcard Gamers on Facebook, so when you buy a playmat with my design, then some of that money will also go to help supporting me and the channel. And on top of all of that, I do have a Twitch account over on twitch.tv/Zenitsu, so giving me a follow and a subscription also helps support me there, and I do play Digimon on top of various other games on that platform as well. So thank you everyone for watching, and as always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content, and I'll see you in the next video.